soy Ricky de Bilingue Vlogs. Thank you for coming back, watching another video of mine. If you don't know me, I'm 100% American, but I taught myself how to speak fluent Spanish just like the natives. And I want to give you 5 tips for how to become fluent in any language, not just Spanish. Before we get into my 5 tips, I think that it's best that we discuss what is fluency in another language. There's a huge misconception that fluency in another language means that you're going to speak that language perfectly. You're not gonna make mistakes. You're not gonna hesitate when you speak. You're gonna be able to just go right at it. That's not really the case. If that was the case, then I'm not even fluent in English. I make mistakes in English. I end my sentences with prepositions, which I'm not supposed to do. For example, if I say, "What are you talking about?" Technically, according to English grammar rules, that's not correct. I'm supposed to say, "About what are you talking?" Sounds weird, doesn't it? Because nobody says it correctly. So, fluency is not perfection. My definition of fluency is this: the ability to successfully have conversations and express yourself in another language over a broad spectrum of topics while still maintaining the same personality that you have in your native language. So let's break this down. The first part here is the ability to have conversations and express yourself in another language over a broad spectrum of topics. So here's how I see fluency in that regard. A beginner, if they look at this picture here, this image here, they will see tools. An intermediate, in the mind of an intermediate, yes, it's the same picture, but they have a different perspective because they have a wider vocabulary in that language. So instead of just seeing tools there, they will see wrenches and they will see screwdrivers. Now, someone who is fluent, who is advanced, they can tell you, okay, that's a lug wrench. That is a pipe wrench. That is a torque wrench. Oh, that's a Phillips screwdriver, and that's a flathead screwdriver. So you see the same picture, but we get 3 different perspectives based on the levels of fluency. Okay? You can talk about way more stuff when you're fluent than when you're not fluent. Okay? So that's why it's in my definition. Now the next part of that is while still maintaining the same personality that you have in your native language. This is major. A lot of people, they can speak a different language and defend themselves for the most part, but there's no personality when it comes to it. If you're somebody who tells jokes in English, but you can't tell jokes in Spanish, then I wouldn't really consider you fluent. Yeah, maybe you're an intermediate, maybe you're even almost advanced, but fluent, I wouldn't really say that you're fluent yet because you're not being yourself yet. Like in my videos when I'm doing my skits and I'm like, "Diablo, pero qué es lo que está pasando?" Like in English, I would say the same thing. "Dang, what's going on there?" Like, you know, I still have the same personality when I speak a different language, if I so choose. Now, sometimes my Spanish personality is a little more exaggerated just because, I don't know, I love Spanish that way, so it's a little more exaggerated, but that's even better. But yeah, you need to be able to express yourself like you. Not like a textbook, not like a robot, but like you. That's what will make you fluent. The last part in regards to that is not really mentioned in there. I mean, it is if you kind of read between the lines, you know, having conversations. You need to be able to understand native speakers as well. That is a huge part of being fluent. How many people like one-sided conversations? Nobody really likes that. And that's typically what happens when people are not fluent in a language. You can ask somebody, "¿Dónde está el baño?" But as soon as they hit you back with where the bathroom is, you don't really know what they're saying, you know? So you have to be able to understand the person as well. If you noticed, it has nothing to do with perfection. It has more to do with comfortability and true expression of yourself. Your ability to be understood and to understand, okay? But it's nothing about being perfect. So with that being said, it's not so hard to achieve, is it? It shouldn't be. I know a lot of people beat themselves up about this when they really shouldn't. It's not that hard to achieve. So how to achieve fluency? If you do these things every single day, I guarantee that you will become fluent in another language. So the first thing is not really doing something, it's just realizing something. And that is that this is a process. And this process does not happen overnight. The second most frequently asked, if not the most frequently asked question that I get on this YouTube channel is, how long did it take you to learn Spanish? If you're focused on time, you are focused on the wrong thing. I'm not going to say you can't learn Spanish this quickly. I'm not going to say that you can. I don't like putting limits on people because I don't like limits being put on myself. I like to defy limits. So you know, if you're up for a challenge of learning fast, go for it. But I will say this, if you try to learn it really quickly, I can guarantee that you won't learn the language as thoroughly as you would like, because slow and steady wins the race. Now, how slow? That depends on you. I'm not saying to slack off. I'm not saying to be lazy, but if you've been trying to learn Spanish for 7 years and your Spanish has not grown, then you gotta put more effort. If you've been learning for 3 months and you don't know the whole language yet, that is okay. You don't have to learn the whole language in 3 months. Give yourself some time. Allow your mind, your brain to process what it has learned, what it's taking in, because the mind can only take so much. We have our jobs, we have school for the students, we have other things that are going on in our lives. And yes, learning Spanish is a lifestyle. It's not just something that we do for 1 hour a day, but our brains have to process things. So if we rush it, it can process it, but it's gonna throw it in the recycle bin. It's gonna put it in the back of our mind, and we're not gonna be able to recall that, and we're gonna have to waste time reviewing something that we should have already learned if we would have taken it a little bit slower, you know? So don't rush. Slow and steady wins the race. Really, truly. I know it's a kid's book, but it's a great lesson for when it comes to learning a language. We're social people. Humans are social people. We like to talk, we like to interact, and we do that in our native language all the time. So when you're looking to be fluent in another language, you need to practice speaking. Make friends, converse with people. You have to speak. You can converse with natives because we have all these online sites where that makes it possible for you in the drop of a dime. You can practice with non-natives, but when you practice with non-natives, make sure you don't revert back to your native language. Keep it in that other language and learn from each other. You have to speak though. Why do you have to speak? Because everything is not found in a book. Languages are always, they're constantly changing. We're adding new words to everything. For example, in Dominican Spanish, we have la pámpara está prendida, or trucho, you know, words like that are just coming out of nowhere. You know, a lot of musicians, a lot of famous people, they will influence our language. Sometimes it's maybe a new invention that influences our language. Words are being created all of the time, and a lot of these things won't be found in books right away. Maybe after a little bit of time, but right away they won't be found. So the best way to learn is to speak. You have to speak, because that way it makes someone else speak to you. Which brings me to my second point. Listen. Listen every day to something in your target language. So many people tell me that they have a hard time understanding people when they speak to them in Spanish, but they just can't understand. And unfortunately, there is no shortcut for understanding different accents of Spanish or whatever language that you're learning. So with that being said, you have to listen as much as possible. This will help you, especially with Spanish, and I'm sure other languages have different dialects and different accents as well. So this will help you for sure to understand those different dialects and accents. People want to know, why do I love Dominican Spanish so much? Here's the real reason why I love Dominican Spanish. Because for the first 9 or 10 years, I spoke neutral Spanish. That's the way that I had learned. But I heard Dominican Spanish one day, and I could not understand a word of this Spanish. So I took it upon myself to listen to Dominican Spanish every single day. Music, interviews, rap battles, whatever it was, I was listening to it every single day. Mind you, I was living in the United States. I hadn't even been out of the United States yet. So I was using all the resources that I had online to listen to things in Dominican Spanish. After a while, I started to catch on, like, wow, wait, I know that word now. Okay, they may say it a little differently than neutral Spanish, but that's the same word here, that's the same word there. Okay, that's slang, but I learned that word, and you know, I'm very proud of the fact that I'm able to understand and speak that Spanish now, because it reminds me that with persistence, with time and effort, I can do whatever. I can do whatever, because I'm telling you, when I first heard Dominican Spanish, I'm like I'm just never gonna go to the Dominican Republic because they speak too differently, and a lot of people already told me that it was bad Spanish and blah blah blah. It's not bad Spanish at all. They speak Spanish, which is why they can speak with people from other countries too. Everybody has their colloquial words and phrases. Okay, that's all that it is. Everybody has their little accent. In the United States, we have many. We have the Southern accent, the New York accent, Midwest, the West Coast person accent. You know, a lot of different accents that we have. Same thing happens in Spanish and other languages as well. But if we listen, then it will become second nature to us. It won't be so hard to understand. And that's what I really want to get into your mind. It takes practice. They don't have, there's no app that can just teach you like, oh, listen for this, listen for that, because a lot of people are going to say things differently. But the one way to be sure that you're going to understand everybody is to keep listening and listening and listening while you study. Okay, so you have to be studying too, because it's not going to just magically come, but study and try to listen for words that you know. Okay, tip number 4 is reading. You have to read. I didn't used to be a big reader. But well, when I did read, it was because I wanted to learn a language, and I used to read the Spanish to English dictionary. But nowadays, now that I'm fluent in Spanish, I find new words by reading. I find a lot of new words and new phrases by reading. This is because there are certain things that I don't talk about in my day-to-day life. So once you become fluent in a language, you will notice that you're using a lot of the same words. You talk about a lot of the same themes. So a lot of things you're not exposed to because you're living in the same environment. Like only if you get a new job or I don't know, something radical happens in your life, then maybe you will have to use new words. But for the most part, you're recycling these same words. I say the same thing in every video. Que lo que mi gente. I say that so many times, even though there are so many other greetings in Spanish. So in order to become more fluent and to expand your vocabulary, you have to read books because it will teach you vocabulary and it will teach you phrases that you wouldn't have access to if you didn't read. I love this app that I read almost every morning called Despertar Sabiendo. It's an app in Spanish, and I set it for a certain time in the morning so that when I wake up, I have a new article to read in Spanish, and it's been teaching me so many new words. Even though I'm fluent, I'm always learning words because nobody can ever know all of the words in a language. It just never works like that. Like I said, it's always evolving. There's always new words being added and things of that sort. So yeah. And the last thing is to write. This is a little bit easier than speaking because you have more time to think. But when you're writing, you also find that there are certain phrases that you don't know how to express. So, you know, make sure that you're writing constantly. Whatever it is that you have to write in a day, if it's not for work, write it out. Or even if it is for work, just make a duplicate copy in whatever your target language is. It's gonna help you out tremendously. But guys, that's literally it. Those are my 5 tips for reaching fluency. So now you learned what real fluency is, well, at least the Bilingue blog's definition. And you've learned 5 tips for how to become fluent in any language. If you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, share this video for people who may want to learn a language. Some people may be discouraged. Hopefully they find this video encouraging. Comment down below with your perception of fluency. Did I miss an aspect of fluency in my definition? I want to know about it in the comments. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel where I focus a lot here on becoming bilingual in English and in Spanish. But you can use the same tips for any language. Don't turn it away just because it says Spanish. You can learn too, okay? So that's it for today's video, guys. Que Dios me lo bendiga. Nos fuimos. We're out.